Ransomware, a type of malicious software, has become the weapon of choice for cybercriminals. It's a lucrative business, with hackers using it to extort money from desperate victims in exchange for the decryption keys to unlock their data. In Baltimore's case, the ransomware used was a variant of Robinhood, a particularly vicious strain that had been making the rounds since 2018. On May 7, 2019, a single phishing email slipped past Baltimore's defenses, and an unsuspecting city employee clicked on a malicious link. This seemingly innocuous action unleashed a digital storm, as the ransomware spread like wildfire through the city's network. Within hours, critical systems were crippled, and city officials were faced with a daunting reality: they were under attack. The initial infection was swift and silent, with the ransomware exploiting vulnerabilities in Baltimore's outdated software. As the malware spread, it encrypted files, rendering them inaccessible to city employees. The hackers then demanded a ransom of 13 Bitcoin, equivalent to around $100,000, in exchange for the decryption keys. The first signs of trouble emerged when city employees reported difficulties accessing email and online applications. As the day wore on, the severity of the situation became clear. The city's 911 dispatch system, used to coordinate emergency responses, was down. The online payment portal for utility bills and parking tickets was inoperable. Even the city's surveillance cameras were rendered useless. Panic began to set in as city officials scrambled to respond to the crisis. Mayor Bernard Young declared a state of emergency, and the city's IT department worked around the clock to contain the spread of the malware. Meanwhile, FBI agents were called in to assist with the investigation. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. City employees were forced to resort to manual processes, relying on paper records and phone calls to conduct daily business. The city's Twitter account became a makeshift bulletin board, with officials using it to disseminate information and provide updates to the public. As the reality of the situation sunk in, the city's residents began to feel the impact. Water bills couldn't be paid online, and real estate transactions were delayed. The city's courts were forced to operate in manual mode, with judges and lawyers relying on paper files and manual transcription. The city's leadership faced intense scrutiny, with many questioning how such a catastrophic breach could have occurred. In the days that followed, finger-pointing and recriminations would become a dominant theme, as officials sought to assign blame for the disaster. But for now, the priority was containment and recovery. The city's IT team worked tirelessly to rebuild systems and restore data from backups. The FBI launched a criminal investigation, working to track down the hackers and bring them to justice. As the city struggled to regain its footing, one thing was clear: the ransomware attack on Baltimore was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of cyber complacency. In the digital age, even the most seemingly secure systems can fall prey to the whims of malicious actors. And as the city's residents waited anxiously for a return to normalcy, they couldn't help but wonder, what's next? As the city's infrastructure began to shut down, the gravity of the situation started to sink in. The once thriving metropolis was now crippled, with essential services grinding to a halt. Emergency responders were unable to access critical information, and 911 calls went unanswered. Water and sewage services were disrupted, leaving residents without access to basic necessities. Panic set in as citizens realized the extent of the attack. Without access to online services, people were unable to pay bills, file taxes, or even access their own personal information. The city's economy began to stall, with businesses forced to close their doors and workers left without pay. Mayor Bernard Young declared a state of emergency, but it was clear that the city was ill-equipped to handle an attack of this magnitude. Officials scrambled to contain the damage, but every effort seemed to be met with resistance from the hackers. The city's IT department was overwhelmed, and outside experts were called in to help mitigate the crisis. As the days turned into weeks, the city's residents grew increasingly frustrated. Without access to basic services, daily life became a struggle. Food and water distributions were set up, but it was a band-aid solution to a much deeper problem. The financial toll of the attack was staggering. The city was forced to spend millions on recovery efforts, and the economic impact was felt far beyond Baltimore's borders. The attack exposed weaknesses in the city's cybersecurity, and officials were left to wonder how they could have prevented the disaster. As the city struggled to regain its footing, the hackers remained silent, their demands for payment still unanswered. The FBI was called in to investigate, but the agency's hands were tied. Without more information, they were unable to track down the culprits. The people of Baltimore were left to pick up the pieces, their sense of security shattered. The attack had exposed the vulnerability of the city's infrastructure, and the world was watching as Baltimore struggled to recover. In the aftermath, tough questions were being asked. How could a city of Baltimore's size and importance be so easily taken down? What measures could have been taken to prevent the attack? And, perhaps most pressing of all, what would it take to ensure that this never happened again? The road to recovery would be long and arduous, but one thing was clear: Baltimore would never be the same again. The attack had changed the city, forcing its residents to re-examine their relationship with technology and the importance of cybersecurity. As the city slowly began to rebuild, officials knew that they had to take a hard look at their own failures. The attack had been a wake-up call, and it was time to take action. The people of Baltimore deserved better, and it was up to their leaders to ensure that they would never again fall victim to the whims of a malicious hacker.